Today is April 15th, 2018. I want to talk in this video about how the media is coding its racially divisive propaganda. Just this past week, we had two very bizarre, racially charged stories occur on the exact same day. So on Thursday, this kid, his name is Brennan Walker apparently, missed his bus for high school and went to a nearby house to ask for directions. This ended up somehow in an old angry white guy firing a shotgun at him as he ran away from the house. So if that's not unbelievable enough, on the very same day we had this news story in Philadelphia, where two men who were just simply waiting for a friend to arrive at a Starbucks had 911 called on them by one of the baristas. The police showed up and arrested these guys, and apparently there's all sorts of outrage around this. Well, I'm going to show you how these are fabricated news stories with the intent of riling up, division among the public. Make people think that racism is this huge problem that we're having in this country and that we can't be trusting anybody. So let's explain a little bit about how this is done. So first of all, on this channel, I teach the language of Gematria, which is the ancient practice of coding numbers into words. Well, as it turns out, English is also a numeric language, just like the ancient Hebrew, Greek, and Latin alphabets. The most basic methods are English ordinal and reverse ordinal, where the alphabet is numbered 1 through 26, both forwards and backwards. And then those two methods can also be reduced, each double-digit number being reduced to a single digit by adding the numbers together. There's also another significant form of gematria called Jewish gematria. This is based on the Latin alphabet, where the more recent English characters are placed at the end. And because this cipher is structured like Hebrew gematria, Greek isopsephy, it results in much larger numbers. So a real basic idea of how this works, the story from Michigan where the kid was shot at was in Rochester Hills, Michigan. And using the English reduction method, this sums to 118. The other story that happened at a Starbucks happened in Philadelphia, PA, which sums to 118 alphabetic order, and Philadelphia, Pennsylvania equals 118 reduction. It's just like Rochester Hills, Michigan. The word racism equals 213. And the kid in this news story, Brennan Walker, as his name is shown on the screen, his name, using the reverse alphabetic order, sums to 213. And this was a really good date for this type of propaganda to reach the public. April 12th, which was this past Thursday, the date on which both these news stories occurred, that's the 102nd day of the year. And in the language of Gematria, the word nigger sums to 102 using the reverse alphabetic order. Additionally, the word slavery equals 102 ordinal, so does the word Neanderthal. Now, what's interesting about 102 is how it relates to time. This numerology study is largely centered around the aspects of time. Well, 102 seconds is 1 minute 42 seconds. The number 42, when written out, equals 142, and you may have seen the N-word in reduction, summing to 42. So these numbers kind of stack on top of each other. Additionally, this date had a life lesson number of 27, April 12, 2018, and the word racism, using the English reduction method, equals 27. What I also want to point out is that this was Starbucks' 13th day after its anniversary, and 13 is a primary hoax code. Down in the description below, I'll link my video to the Trayvon Martin and George Zimmerman incident from 2012, and how I explained that was a hoax crafted around the numbers 13 and 33. Now 213, this is another number you see in black propaganda. Black Panther equals 213. So does Black History Month, 213 alphabetic order. Now, Brennan Walker, we saw the 213 in reverse, but what I also want to point out is in reduction, this sums to 57. And think about how this story kind of reminds you of the Trayvon Martin incident. Trayvon Martin was simply walking back home This guy's name is Walker. His name sums to 57. The date that Trayvon Martin was killed while he was walking home was the 57th day of the year, February 26th. And in the single reduction method, the city in which this occurred, Rochester Hills, Rochester sums to 57. Trayvon Martin in reduction equals 64. This news story takes place in Michigan, which sums to 64. And think about the name of the guy who shot at this kid, right? In this news story, it was this old angry white guy, and his name is Jeffrey Ziegler. You know, doesn't that kind of remind you of George Zimmerman? Again, I'll link my post and my video below on the Trayvon Martin hoax. And even the word George equals 57, just like Brennan Walker. So there's a little bit more to this, in fact. You know, we talked about 13 being a primary hoax code. 13 has gematria of 45 reduction and 117 reverse. And measuring from the anniversary of the Trayvon Martin shooting to the date of this incident was 1 month and 17 days, and this converts to 45 days. George Zimmerman had this 117 in his birth numerology. And another interesting thing about this name, Brennan equals 121. This matches the reduction value of George Michael Zimmerman, his full name. And then Trayvon Martin, his full birth numerology, was 121. So there's a lot of parallels here. I'll link to my post below on this again. A lot of numbers of masonry involved in the duration, measuring from the Trayvon Martin incident to this as well. And this actually stands out more in this second article that we'll look at. This is the incident where the two men were arrested at Starbucks just for being there and black, I suppose. At least that's how they're presenting it to us. So, first of all, it's very interesting that this takes place at a Starbucks. Starbucks, in full reduction, sums to 24. This is the reverse of 42. Again, the word nigger sums to 42. In the single reduction method, Starbucks also equals 42. Now in this method, you'll see the only difference is the letter S. Because this is single reduction, the number 19 is only reduced once. 1 plus 9 equals 10. And then in full reduction, these S's are just worth 1. So Starbucks equals 24 and 42. Well, it just so happens the person who filmed this incident and put it on Twitter, her name was Melissa, which also sums to 24 and 42. Starbucks even has these numbers in the numerology of the date that it was established, March 31st, 1971. See how that had a date numerology of 42 and 124. Now, if you take this headline from the news article that I looked at, this is just the first one that I saw. Starbucks chief executive apologizes for arrests of 2 black men. And note that they use the word, or the letter S in apologizes. Would usually be a Z in America, but anyways, this sums to 242, like, 24 and its inverse, 42. And this is certainly no mistake. Look at this 325 in reverse full reduction. It's the Scottish Rite of Freemasonry, which brings us these hoax news stories. 325 alphabetic order. Its full name is the Ancient Accepted Scottish Rite of Freemasonry. In the reverse order, this sums to 632. And in Jewish ordinal, which is Jewish gematria dropped down to an ordinal base, as seen in this method, numbered 1 through 27. The headline also summing to 632. Now, if you thought that was a coincidence, I'm also going to ask you if this is too. Now, this woman, Melissa DePino, who filmed the incident and put it on Twitter, she's an author, right? And check out what she did with that tweet. She made sure to send it out at 4:12 p.m. on the date April 12th, written 4/12. Of course, most people won't pick up on this, but this is the kind of attention to detail that Freemasonry involves. And just look at her Twitter handle. Her Twitter handle is Missy DePino. In Jewish Gematria, this sums to 787. And in English Extended, which is a very similar method but ordered with the present-day alphabetic order, this sums to 1147 using that cipher. Well, the word Freemasonry also equals 787 and 1147 in those same exact methods. Also, 58, 59 reduction, Missy DePino, 58, 59 reduction. You know, there's just no way that all these are coincidence. Another thing, too, about this story, her actual name, Melissa DePino, sums to 141, and it also sums to 60 in reduction. The number 33 sums to 141 and 60 in reduction. In the alphabetic order, it sums to 156. The spokesman, the chief executive for Starbucks, is Kevin Johnson, and his name sums to 156. Also notice the 57. We saw this in the name of Brennan Walker. You know, Trayvon Martin shot on the 57th day of the year by George, which sums to 57. So this is what's going on. The media is giving us fake news stories, and then they craft them by this code using letters and numbers, dates on the calendar. And for those with eyes to see, you can simply go in and decode these stories. Well, hopefully I've given enough tools where most people can look at this and start to see for themselves what's really happening in the mainstream media and how they are attempting to manipulate our minds. Thanks for watching, Truth Seeker. God bless and have a good one.